Throughout my childhood, I used to have a nightmare over and over again that I would walk into my house and there would be blood all over the walls. Not just a bad dream, but horror, gore. And I had no idea what it was. In fact, it took me till 40 to realize that there was a name for what I had been carrying it and that it didn't start with me. On this show, we explore survival mode, what it does to you, what it costs you, and the tools that you can use to break free. I'm Violet Rainwater. My birth name was Violetta, and I'm bringing it back. Throughout my childhood and growing up, I did not have words for what was happening to me. I did not even have an awareness to it, but there were definitely signs, symptoms. Anxiety from morning till night, a hypervigilance that I could not explain. I just knew that if I walked into a building, I had to know where the exit route was. I could not go into large crowds because my anxiety would be through the roof. And I constantly had this feeling of unsteadiness, like danger was near and the bottom was about to come out. That's what it looked like on the inside. The reason that I didn't have an awareness to it is because on the outside, it looked very different. I was an extremely successful corporate sales professional, top producer year after year, poised, polished, and a smile that always said, I got it. What I later learned is these are all coping mechanisms for what was happening inside of me. For most of my life, I was stuck in a prison in my own mind. And I didn't even realize there was a door to help me get out. It wasn't until a decade ago when I lost my job, my ability to make money, lost everything that I had worked so hard for, that I started asking questions that I had never asked before. Why am I like this? Why do I keep repeating the same patterns? Why is it always 2 steps forward, 3 steps back? And what is this anxiety all about? And when you start asking and seeking, eventually you do discover that what you're looking for. And I discovered epigenetics. Epigenetics taught me that as the daughter of a child Holocaust survivor and the granddaughter of 4 Holocaust survivors, that from my first breath, I was wired with survival mode. Although I didn't participate in the Holocaust like my father did and my grandparents did, I had the same altered stress response, heightened awareness, hyper vigilance, anxiety, depression, grief. It all started to make sense for me. And this was beyond my subconscious. This was my DNA, my wiring. And it was so deep that I didn't even realize what was happening. I did want to share with you a little bit more about what I learned about epigenetics, because at first it was really hard for me to wrap my mind around it. But it essentially says that the experiences of your family, especially if they were traumatic, can change how genes are expressed. And that expression can be passed down. So because of the horror and the gore and the terror that my father experienced and my grandparents experienced, that changed their gene expression, and that altered gene expression was transferred down to me. What that means is that our stress response, how we respond to stress, to change, to new technology, to setbacks, to rejection, it's inherited. You can be born, like I was, with the alarm already set. Now, why is this important to understand? Well, first of all, for most of my life, I thought there was just something fundamentally wrong with me because I could see that the kids around me, my peers, my colleagues, there was an ease about them. There was a comfort in their own skin that I just didn't have. And no matter how hard I tried, and I would emulate them and study them, I've always been fascinated with people. It didn't work for me. It seemed as if it worked for everybody else, but there was something fundamentally wrong with me. And what I learned is there was nothing fundamentally wrong with me. This was not a character flaw. This was never mine to begin with. But I do believe that. And so once I recognized that, I wanted to know what can I do? And when I first really understood epigenetics, I was pissed off. I was pissed off because I realized how deep these patterns and this wiring and my coping mechanisms went. And it felt like it wasn't fair. It felt like, why me? And it felt like, am I ever going to break free? But I realized that everything we go through, it's not a coincidence. It's part of our life work and part of our life path. And I really believe that this is the message that I came to share. And from my new friends here and old friends, you know me as a sales architect. I've done a ton of videos on sales. And if you want those videos, you can go check me out on LinkedIn. But on this show, I am dedicating 100% of it to survival mode and its detrimental effects and how we can break free, because we can break free. And I am a walking example. The greatest discovery that I made in my search to help myself break free and be able to share the gifts that I came to share, I couldn't share it while I was in survival mode because being seen was terrifying. And even though I could show up and make it look easy, eventually I would have to retreat because it was just all too much for me. It felt like danger. And the greatest discovery I made is something called neuroplasticity. So essentially, it's neuroscience, the science of the brain. Survival mode begins in the brain. Because what happens is your brain, anytime there's like change, it sees it as a threat, or any old stories, it sees as a threat. And so we get triggered, and that's when the survival mode response activates. And it begins in the brain. And what it does to the brain is it actually shuts down 90% of your brain, your logical brain, your intuition, your creativity, all that shuts down. The only thing that stays online is the reptilian brain. And that's, I like to refer to that as like the 5-year-old brain. What you'll often see in the workplace, and if you work in the workplace, do you ever feel like you're working with a bunch of kindergartners? Yeah, because the workplace, the modern workplace, puts so many people on high alert. There's so much change, and it's a threat. And so many of us, these are our coping mechanisms. When we go into survival mode, we go back to the 5-year-old self, and this was how we handled stress. So withdrawing, lashing out, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And you might have a few of those. Prior to the turn of the century, neuroscientists believed that the brain was fixed, meaning that however your brain developed, so the way that my brain was wired, that there was no hope for me, that it couldn't change, that it was fixed. And at the turn of the century, they made a huge discovery and realized they were 100% inaccurate, not 10% inaccurate, not even 50, 100% inaccurate, because the brain can change. What can be wired can be rewired. And that is the best news that I want to shout on every mountain type. It doesn't matter what it looks like today. It doesn't matter the choices you made, the consequences, where you find yourself today, rock bottom, because you can rewire. And no one can do it for you. This is not something you can go and purchase a new operating system, a new way for your brain to work. You can't borrow it. You can only rewire it. And that is the work. And that is the work that I started doing about a decade ago. The language of the brain is new thoughts, new feelings, repetition. New thoughts, new feelings, repetition. So when I first lost everything and I was just stuck in survival mode, I had so much resistance. I thought it was the biggest mistake, and I had so much judgment for myself. How could I have let this happen? And looking back today, it was the best thing that ever happened, because I would have probably still been in survival mode. I would have had a heart attack and not been on this earth. And so at that time, when I learned about rewiring and I started reading The Body Keeps Score, and It Didn't Start With You, I also didn't have a lot of energy for much, because I was literally confined to a couch. I was so traumatized by what happened. I mean, literally, my life shattered before my eyes. And I just had to sit there and watch it all happen. And as I started each day, I just started with one little different practice. I started with a walk in the morning facing the sun. That's it. Just every morning, I started walking and facing the sun, and it started helping me regulate my nervous system. And I knew that was the key because regulation sets your brain back online. When we regulate our nervous system, and we're going to be talking a lot about nervous system regulation, we send a message to the brain that we are safe, that all is well. And then we're able to get out of survival mode. And when we do it again and again and again through repetition, we create new pathways in the brain. So here's how I like to explain that. Let me grab a piece of paper here for you. All right. See this piece of paper? We're going to fold it in half. Let's call this pathway I'm in danger. Okay. And so every day, if you have read any of the research on how many thoughts we have a day, it's kind of mind blowing 50 to 75,000 thoughts the average person has. So just imagine like 50% of the time, I'm not safe. 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 Okay. I'm not safe. I'm not safe. That pathway is so ingrained in me. I'm not safe. I'm not safe. Because if you look at why people do what they do when they lash out, it's because they don't feel safe. And that's the problem with survival mode, right? And so, what happens when the next time I try a new project or I want to take a big risk? Where does my brain go? I'm not safe, right? Because it's so ingrained into me. So, now we're going to create a new pathway. I am safe. All is well. I am loved. I am good enough. I am protected. I am a child of God. All is well. All is well. All is well. And so, what happens now the next time I want to try something new? Ah, I have the courage. I have the ability to be resilient because I've built new pathways in the brain. Something else I did early on my healing journey is I started going to a really nice gym. At the time, I literally had to move back in with my parents, and I was on unemployment. It was the first time in my life I didn't make money and I didn't know how to make money. I lost the one way that I knew how to make money. And for me, making money is where I felt safe. And so now that I didn't have any money, had to move in with my parents, I was terrified and resisted this new life. But this is the hero's journey. You know, we're called into the forest to face our demons. And that's exactly what I had to do. And so I started going to the gym. I did not have the strength to work out, which I've been working out since I was 15, but that's how broken in a million pieces I was, paralyzed by fear. And I started going to the gym and just sitting in the sauna, just relaxing my body every day. And I would go in the sauna, jacuzzi, just really calming my nervous system, creating new pathways. And I got to tell you, at the time, I felt like nothing was happening. Like maybe I felt slightly a little bit more peaceful, but I had so much fear in me that I really couldn't feel it at the time. But what was happening is little by little, I was creating safety in my body. And eventually, a couple months later, I started getting on the bike and I started riding the bike. And then I eventually started lifting. And so it was these new habits, new practices through daily repetition that allowed me to start rewiring what was so deeply wired within me. And the reason I wanted to start the show, yes, share my story, the framework, but also to give hope to those people, because if I can rewire with how deep that wiring of fear, of horror, of terror was inside of me, everybody can rewire. And I believe we have one life. What a waste to live it in survival mode. I have so much regret that I wasted my high school years, my college years, my 20s, my 30s stuck in survival mode. There's no way to live. We cannot share the gifts that we came to share in survival mode. We cannot shine our light in survival mode. And we definitely cannot share the music that we came to share when we're stuck in survival mode. Okay. What was wired deeply within me in my DNA was pure darkness. And I cracked the code and I broke free. And now I'm here to help you break free as well. Because if it's possible for me, it's definitely possible for you. Wired for survival, yes, but made for so much more. If you enjoyed this video, if you yourself feel like you might struggle with survival mode, because the statistics show that the majority of us throughout the day, at some point, we are triggered and we're stuck in survival mode. And for the majority of us, we don't even have an awareness to it. And so if you are looking to really break free of your limitations and get to that next level, whether it's in your wealth, your finances, your career, your relationships, whatever it is, that's exactly what I'll be diving into on this show. We're dropping 3 episodes, and then every Thursday going forward, we'll have a new episode. So if you enjoyed this episode and it brought up something in you, let me know in the comments and make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and share this with your friends because the research shows that the majority of us throughout the day at some point are in survival mode. And if you're ready to break free, I have a new episode that will be coming out every Thursday going forward. Thank you guys so much. And I'm wishing all my friends a blessed day ahead.